In the grand strategy of World War II, we focus on the heavy tanks and the long-range bombers. But the war was won by movement. It was won by the ability to get officers to the front, radios to the hilltops, and ammunition to the foxholes. Before 1939, armies moved at the speed of a horse or a heavy truck stuck in the mud. By 1945, warfare had become mobile, agile, and motorized. This revolution wasn't led by a massive tank, but by a tiny, four-wheel drive icon that could go anywhere and do anything. From the mass-produced American Willys MB that became the symbol of liberation, to the amphibious German that could cross rivers, and the forgotten Japanese scouts that navigated the jungle, every nation raced to build the ultimate light utility vehicle. Some were engineering marvels, others were death traps that tipped over at the first corner. In this video, we break down every Jeep and light utility vehicle used in World War II. Willys MB. The icon, known simply as the Jeep, it defined the concept of the general-purpose GP vehicle. Rugged, reliable, and incredibly adaptable, it featured a flat grille and a Go Devil engine. It was used as an ambulance, a machine gun platform, a cable layer, and even a chaplain's altar. General Eisenhower listed it as one of the 3 tools that won the war. The next one, Ford GPW. Visually nearly identical to the Willys MB. Ford built these using Willys blueprints to meet the insane demand of the war effort. The W in GPW stood for the Willys engine design. The only major difference was the stamped F on the bolt heads, a detail collectors obsess over today. Up next, Ford GP. The prototype. This was one of the early proto-Jeeps. GP stood for Government Project. It featured a similar layout but had a slightly different hood and wheel arrangement. While innovative, it was quickly phased out when the standardized MB design was chosen for mass production. Now this is the Bantam BRC-40. The original pioneer. The American Bantam Car Company actually designed the first vehicle to meet the Army's impossible deadline. It was light, fast, and agile. Although Bantam was too small a company to win the mass production contract, their design was the blueprint that Willys and Ford. Finishing this section with the Willys MA. The direct ancestor. This was the initial Willys submission before the MB. It featured a column gear shift and a simpler single-gauge cluster. Most of these were sent straight to the Soviet Union via Lend-Lease, making them a rare sight on the Western Front. Next on the list is the United Kingdom, the Tilly. Standard Light Utility. Commonly nicknamed the Tilly. This was Britain's closest equivalent to the Jeep before Lend-Lease kicked in. Based on a civilian car chassis, it was a compact pickup truck used for transport and light cargo. While not as off-road capable as the Jeep, it was beloved by British crews for its reliability. Moving on to Germany, the Germany's answer to the Jeep. Designed by Ferdinand, it was essentially a militarized Beetle. It was extremely lightweight, simple, and air-cooled. While it lacked four-wheel drive, its light weight allowed soldiers to physically lift it out of mud. It was superb in the North African desert where water-cooled engines boiled over. The next one, the famous floating. This was an ingenious amphibious utility vehicle. It featured a boat-like tub hull and a screw propeller at the rear that folded down for water use. It allowed German scouts to cross rivers without waiting for bridges, a remarkable piece of engineering. Up next, R200. A heavy, complex 4x4. Unlike the Simple, this was a sophisticated machine with four-wheel steering in early models and independent suspension. It was part of the PKW program. While technologically advanced, it was a nightmare to repair in the field. Now this is the 901. A powerful, standardized heavy transport car. Known for its boxy, angular appearance and spare tires mounted on the sides, which acted as bumper rollers. It served reliably throughout the conflict, carrying officers and heavy communications equipment across the Russian steppe. Continuing with Japan, the Jungle Scouts. Type 95. The primary Japanese scout car. It is often cited as the world's first mass-produced 4x4 passenger vehicle. Small, round, and featuring a distinct motorcycle-like air-cooled engine, it was incredibly rugged. It was designed specifically for the narrow trails of China and the Pacific Islands. The next one, AK-10. A rare beast. This was a Japanese utility car heavily influenced by the capture of an American Bantam Jeep in the Philippines. It looked remarkably like a Jeep, but was produced in very limited numbers. It heavily influenced the post-war Land Cruiser. Next on the list is France, the six-wheelers. V15T. A distinctive French design. It featured a unique 6x6 configuration, or 4x4 with helper wheels. It looked odd, with small wheels tucked under the nose to prevent it from ditching in trenches. It was used mainly for towing 25 anti-tank guns before the fall of France. The next one, V10M. A lighter reconnaissance version of the V15. Fast and agile, it was designed for border patrols. After 1940, many were captured and used by the Wehrmacht, painted in German. Up next, DMA. A standard French light truck chassis adapted for utility use. It was a cab-over design, meaning the driver sat over the engine. Primarily used for local logistics, it was a simple, sturdy workhorse for the French military and later the resistance. Moving on to Italy, Desert Raiders. Spy S43. An Italian light armored scout car. It was used extensively for high-speed patrols in North Africa. Fast and relatively well-armed for its class, it was favored by the specialized companies for long-range desert raids. The next one, SPA TL-37. A light artillery tractor, distinguished by its 4 massive wheels and very high ground clearance. It also featured 4-wheel steering, making it incredibly maneuverable in the tight, rocky terrain of the Italian mountains and African deserts. Now let's look at Czechoslovakia, the occupied industry. 57K. A Czech light utility car, was famous for its air-cooled engines and rugged chassis. After the German occupation, the Wehrmacht eagerly adopted the 57K for police and liaison duties. It was reliable and could handle the poor roads of the Eastern Front. The next one, AV. A heavy 6-wheeled command car. It was a luxury vehicle turned into a war machine. Used extensively by high-ranking Axis officers for transport, it represents the high quality of Czech engineering that supplied the German war effort. Continuing with Canada, the CMP. C8A CMP. The Canadian military pattern. While often a truck, the heavy utility versions HU served the role of a large Jeep. Built on a standardized GM platform, they were ugly, boxy, and tough. They served extensively across the Commonwealth forces, from Italy to Burma. Finishing off with the Soviet Union, the Red Jeep. GAZ-64. The Soviet Union's first indigenous Jeep equivalent. Designed in record time under wartime pressure, it looked like a Willys but used GAZA truck parts. It suffered from a very narrow track width, which made it prone to tipping over on steep Russian terrain. The next one, GAZ-67. The Fix, a significant improvement over the GAZ-64. Soviet designers widened the wheel track dramatically and strengthened the chassis. It became the standard Soviet utility vehicle for the latter half of the war, known as the Ivan Willys. Finishing this section with the GAZ-67B. The final refinement. Introduced in 1944, it featured a more durable engine and improved suspension. It was so successful that it remained in service with the Soviet Army and its allies long after the war ended, proving that simple engineering is often the best engineering. From the high-tech Amphibious to the rugged simplicity of the Willys Jeep, these vehicles changed the speed of war. They replaced the horse and gave the common soldier a level of mobility never seen before. Looking at this list, which utility vehicle would you choose for survival? The Go-Anywhere Willys Jeep or the Amphibious? Let us know in the comments below. This is USGI Archives. Subscribe for more.